It's hovering and it's not an aircraft.
For 17 minutes, the world listened as a young pilot described an encounter with something impossible. The transmission ends, not with an explanation, but with a series of strange metallic scraping sounds, and then complete silence, a sound that has never been explained. What the hell was that? That's the question, isn't it? On October 21st, 1978, 20-year-old pilot Frederick Valentich vanished in his Cessna 182L over Australia's Bass Strait. He was never seen again. No wreckage was ever found. All that remains is the official transcript of his final, terrifying conversation with air traffic control. The official investigation declared the cause of disappearance as undetermined. But that single word hides a story of premonitions, escalating panic, and a direct confrontation with the unknown. To understand what happened in those final moments, we have to go back to the beginning. Let's unpack this. The late 1970s in Australia was a strange time. The anxieties of the Cold War were simmering away in the background, and there was a growing sense that not everything could be explained by science and government reports. This cultural curiosity created a fertile ground for what some called UFO-Mania. It seemed like every week there was a new story of strange lights in the sky, from the Nullarbor Plain to the suburbs of Melbourne.
Right, so if you lost your car keys in 1978, your first assumption was a UFO had nabbed them for a joyride.
Got it. Precisely. Society was split. For every true believer, there was a hardened skeptic. And this story lands right in the middle of that battlefield. To add to the texture of the mystery, you have the location itself, the Bass Strait and the Cape Otway region. This isn't just a random patch of ocean. The official report tells one story, but the old-timers in that region will tell you something else entirely. It's a place with a long memory, infamous for its treacherous currents and sudden violent storms. For centuries, it's been a notorious shipwreck graveyard. The number of wrecks scattered across its floor has earned it the nickname the Shipwreck Coast.
So it's already got a reputation for making things disappear.
Lovely. Indeed. It's a place where the modern world feels thin, a wild and isolated stage perfectly set for a drama of high strangeness to unfold. Into this scene steps our pilot, Frederick Valentich. It's important to understand who he was. He wasn't some reckless amateur. At 20 years old, he had logged around 150 flight hours and held a Class 4 instrument rating, which meant he was certified as a competent pilot, though not a highly experienced one. However, his flight record wasn't perfect. He had twice applied to enlist in the Royal Australian Air Force and was rejected due to inadequate educational qualifications. His training history also showed a few minor incidents, like straying into a controlled zone.
So he was a decent pilot, but not exactly a Top Gun. Just a normal young bloke who loved flying. That makes him more relatable, to be honest.
It does. It paints a picture of a passionate but still developing pilot. He was qualified for this flight, but his relative inexperience is a factor that investigators had to consider. He was confident, but according to his family and girlfriend, he also had a deep fascination with UFOs. It was more than a passing interest. It was a topic he researched and discussed constantly. And this is where the story takes its first chilling turn. In the days leading up to his final flight, his family reported that Frederick seemed agitated. They told him he was worried about a possible attack, that he had a genuine fear of being abducted from the sky.
Hang on, are you serious? He actually said he was worried about being abducted just days before he disappeared? That's not a coincidence, that's a premonition.
It's a detail that has haunted this case for over 40 years. And if you find stories like this as compelling as we do, this is a good moment to subscribe to the channel and join us as we investigate more of these Aussie oddities. On October 21st, Valentich took off from Moorabbin Airport in his Cessna 182L, registration number VHDSJ. His flight plan was routine, a simple run down to King Island and back, a chance to build up his flight hours. But as the coast of Australia disappeared behind him, his routine flight was about to be derailed by an extraordinary encounter.
This is Delta Sierra Juliet. Is there any known traffic below 5,000 feet? No known traffic.
At 7:06 p.m., Valentich radioed Melbourne's air traffic control. The man who answered the call was Steve Roby. Their exchange would become the entire foundation of this mystery. Valentich then reports seeing what he describes as 4 bright lights, like landing lights, passing about 1,000 feet above him. He says they seem to be playing some sort of game with him.
Right, so his first thought is it's just another plane. Makes sense.
Exactly. But Roby confirms again, there are no other aircraft in his vicinity. A few moments later, his description changes.
Seems to be playing some sort of game. He's flying over me. Delta Sierra Juliet, it's not an aircraft, it's... Can you describe the aircraft? As it's flying past, it's a long shape. Cannot identify it, it has such speed. It's before me right now, Melbourne.
This is the critical juncture. The transcript shows Valentich trying to process what he's seeing in real time. The professional calm of a pilot is being systematically dismantled by impossible sensory data. First, there's the sheer speed and agility of the object. He describes it orbiting above him, then vanishing, only to reappear on another side. His own aircraft, the Cessna, was simply not capable of those maneuvers, and he knew of nothing else that was. Then there's the physical description.
Seems like it's stationary. What it's doing right now is orbiting. The thing is just orbiting on top of me. It's also got a green light and a sort of metallic, like, it's shiny on the outside.
The detail of the shiny metallic surface is crucial. This wasn't just a strange light. He was describing a solid, structured craft. All of this is building a picture in his mind, piece by piece, that he cannot reconcile with reality, which leads to his engine trouble.
It's also got a green light and a sort of metallic, like, it's shiny on the outside. It's just vanished.
Vanished? Just like that? After buzzing him like a fly? That's not normal aircraft behavior.
It gets stranger. Valentich then reports his engine is running rough, coughing and sputtering. And then comes the line that defines this entire event. Roby asks him to identify the aircraft.
It's hovering and it's not an aircraft.
In that moment, the situation changed from a potential near miss with another plane to a confrontation with something truly unknown. And then, for the final 17 seconds of the transmission, this. "17 seconds of unexplained metallic noise. Then, the open channel cut out. Silence."
Right. Being pursued by a UFO that's making a sound like a rusty hills hoist in a hurricane. Must have been a bit distracting from his flight plan.
No one has ever been able to positively identify it. It was the last sound ever officially received from Cessna VHDSJ. When the radio went silent, an immediate and massive search operation was launched. For 4 days, RAAF aircraft, civilian planes, and boats scoured the Bass Strait. They found nothing. No oil slick, no floating debris, no wreckage. It was as if the plane and its pilot had simply been plucked from the sky.
A whole plane doesn't just disappear. Not without a trace. Something has to be left behind, doesn't it? A seat cushion, a life jacket, anything.
You would think so, but in this case, there was nothing. But while the official search found no physical evidence, something else did emerge. This is a detail you won't find in the official report. In the days and weeks that followed, a number of witness statements were collected from people along the Cape Otway coast. These were unconnected individuals in different locations who reported seeing a strange, fast-moving green light in the sky on the same night at roughly the same time as Valentich's disappearance. One witness, a plumber named Roy Manifold, even took a series of photographs of an object rapidly moving out of the water near the Cape Otway lighthouse.
Hang on, so other people saw something? It wasn't just him?
That's the claim. The photographs were analyzed, but the results were inconclusive. Still, the existence of multiple ground witnesses describing a green light adds an entirely new layer of mystery to Valentich's final report. The formal air accident investigation summary was released, and its findings were as frustrating as the search itself. Investigators considered four main possibilities. First, that Valentich became spatially disoriented and was flying upside down, seeing his own lights reflected in the water. They dismissed this as inconsistent with the long duration of the event. Second, that it was a suicide. This was ruled out, as he had a good relationship with his family, a girlfriend, and plans for the future.
Hang on, what about just a normal plane crash? Engine failure, pilot error, the simple stuff.
That's the third possibility, and it's a crucial point. They explored it extensively, but the weather was clear, the plane had recently undergone maintenance, and it had 4 life jackets and an emergency radio beacon on board. A simple catastrophic failure would likely have left some evidence, some wreckage, or a final distress call that wasn't about a mysterious craft, which left them with the fourth official possibility. The report concluded, and I quote, "The reason for the disappearance of the aircraft has not been determined." It left the ambiguity wide open, cementing the Valentich case as one of the greatest modern Australian mysteries.
So after a massive search and a full investigation, the official government conclusion is the shrug emoji? Inspiring stuff. What do you reckon, legends? After hearing all that, what's your theory on what really happened out there? Let us know in the comments.
That official ambiguity had very real human consequences, a ripple effect of trauma that spread far beyond the cockpit of that Cessna. For Steve Roby, the air traffic controller, the event was a professional and psychological nightmare. He was the last person to speak with Valentich, the sole official witness to a man's final terrified moments. In the aftermath, he was subjected to intense questioning, not just from investigators but from the media and the public. He was forced to defend his every action, his every word on that transcript. The official report cleared him of any wrongdoing, but the experience cast a long shadow over his career.
Can you imagine? It's one thing to hear it on a recording decades later, but to be the person on the other end of that line, hearing the panic rise in that kid's voice, that's something that would stay with you forever.
For the Valentich family, the pain was compounded by the mystery. They lost a son, but were left with no answers, no closure, just a recording of his final moments and the chilling knowledge of his premonition. Their grief was public, and it never truly went away. And so, the case of Frederick Valentich remains frozen in time, a file that is technically still open, but realistically will never be closed. It's not a story about aliens or government conspiracies. It's a story about a moment of profound, documented terror that has no explanation. In the end, after all the analysis, we are left with 2 stark, irreconcilable possibilities. The first is the path of logic, that a young, relatively inexperienced pilot flying over a disorienting black ocean at night suffered a catastrophic case of spatial disorientation, that the lights he saw were his own, reflected in the water, that the engine trouble was real, and the final metallic sounds were the tragic, mundane noises of an aircraft breaking apart as it hit the sea. The second is the path of the unexplained, that a young man, haunted by a premonition of his own abduction, had a genuine encounter with a technology that defied all known laws of physics. That the voice on that tape is the calm, terrified testimony of a man documenting his own erasure by a force we do not understand. A simple accident or a confrontation with the unknown. The official file remains open, so we turn it over to the legends. After hearing the evidence, which path makes more sense to you?
Right, so the bloke just vanishes. That's chilling. And it just makes you wonder what other secrets these isolated spots are hiding. The next case file we're cracking open is a proper mind bender. If you're as hooked on trying to piece this stuff together as I am, this is your official invite to join the legends on the journey.
The Valentich case is a mystery defined by absence, a voice without a body, a disappearance without a trace. But sometimes a case is haunting not for what's missing, but for what's been left behind. An unidentified man on a quiet beach, a secret code in his pocket, and a single cryptic phrase, "Tamam should." If you think a voice in the dark is chilling, wait until you see the evidence that's been hiding in plain sight for over 70 years. Join us as we investigate Australia's most baffling cold case in our video, The Unbreakable Code Found in a Dead Man's Pocket. It's on screen now. We'll see you there.